Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Welcome back to Tesla Daily. Thank you for your patience. We got a lot to catch up on here. We've got news on Giga Mexico, updates on Tesla in China, some updates on the Cybertruck, Tesla bots, and obviously more from the last week and a half or so. All right, so starting off with the stock, Tesla today down 1.75% to close at $269.61, while the Nasdaq today was up 0.2%. So kind of looks like a relatively poor performance for Tesla, but some interesting context that we got to bring in for today. The Nasdaq 100 is going to be doing a rebalancing because they feel they are getting overweight on some of the heaviest market cap stocks in the index. So they are going to be rebalancing this as of July 24th. They'll announce the changes specifically on July 14th, but obviously they're going to reduce the weight of those top companies, which, as we know from the S&P 500 saga that most of us went through, or many of us went through, can be pretty impactful. Now, this is not going to be to the degree that the S&P 500 inclusion was, where that's a stock that's getting added to an index. This is just a rebalancing, but it could still have a bit of an impact and could have some front running for that impact, or even just from the perception of, that front running happening, that could cause some downward trends too. So we definitely saw that in the markets today. If you look at the top 7 stocks here in the Nasdaq top 100, you can see that 6 of them are in the red, around 1% to 2%. So Tesla falling right in that bucket. And then if we scroll down, pretty much everything else in the green. So that's why the Nasdaq overall green, but Tesla probably underperforming today alongside some of those heavy market cap companies. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, some of that could continue as we head into those rebalancing periods. Long term, I guess it means a little bit more float probably, as index matching funds will rebalance as well, but hopefully not too big of an impact long term. All right, let's get into the Giga Mexico stuff here. So we've got some exciting comments from the governor of Nuevo León, of course, often giving us updates on the progress that the factory is making there. So here's a couple of quotes. He said, quote, we do not yet have a date for when, but the good news is that all the permits for the environment, energy, water, everything is already checked. It is advancing. So at any moment, we are going to give them the news that the first stone is being laid, end quote. So it's a little bit maybe confusing with the translation. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the permits are complete yet, but apparently they're already in process and they're advancing in that process, and sounds like they're very close to being complete in that process where Tesla can then start to break ground. So hopefully that's happening really soon. I think the initial timeline was probably prior to now. So although that might mean a slight delay, hopefully it means we are getting very close to the actual groundbreaking of Giga Mexico, which obviously a very exciting event. He also said, quote, what we have of information is that right now they are already in the final stage of the design of the new car, a new model, which is going to be, as far as we know, the best electric and economic car in the world, and it is going to be a milestone. So now, yes, with the design finished, what we know is that they are already finishing the production lines, the software, and everything that must be ready to start the plant, end quote. Now, that's going to take a long time to bring these things into reality, but from the update here, it does sound like they're relatively far along, at least in the planning process, which, no surprise, that's kind of how Tesla works before they go in and break ground, and that's why we see them make such fast progress once they reach that step. But still, very exciting to hear, with this being, of course, the next generation vehicle for Tesla. So a couple of really good and exciting updates there on Giga Mexico. All right, next we've got updates on China. So probably a week ago, maybe a little bit over that, we heard the wholesale sales figure for June. This was about 94,000 vehicles, just shy of 94,000. So not a record, but really strong performance on wholesale sales, which could mean that June production was actually pretty solid. We're still waiting for that figure, hoping that we'll get that in the next day or two, and we'll cover that when we do. But for now, looking at wholesale sales, you can see the breakdown: 30,000 Model 3, about 63,000 Model Y. Also probably close to a record, maybe a similar situation where November outperforming that before. But if we look more importantly at the breakdown between retail sales, which are domestic sales, and exports, we can see the ratio changed pretty significantly here in June, which we'd normally seen historically, but with the unwinding of the wave that Tesla is in process of doing, wasn't as clear that maybe that would be happening here in the second quarter. So with this 74,000 vehicles that were sold domestically there in China, the resale sales here, that puts the quarter here at about 156,000, 157,000 or so, in terms of the total quarter of domestic sales. That's actually a record over Q1 by 14%. So we've been talking about that throughout the quarter as the insured vehicle numbers came in. It was pointing in that direction as of the last couple of weeks. The last week came in at 17,400. So really delivering a very solid result here in June to set that record by a pretty significant amount when early on in the quarter things were tracking well, but I think we were kind of thinking, maybe we get a little bit above it. 14% is a really, really strong outperformance of where things were at in Q1. Obviously, Q1 had Chinese New Year, but still, there was some production downtime here, maybe in June, certainly in May, that affects these numbers as well. So really great to see those numbers out of China. And again, we'll follow up once we have production because that will inform a little bit of what we were talking about from deliveries because it'll let us interpret a little bit more about Texas and Berlin, since those would be the remainder of non-Fremont or Shanghai production. All right, now the other thing that's kind of been, or a couple other things that have been going on in China. So there's been a report from Bloomberg, this was a few days ago, so again, bear with me, we're catching up a bit, but a report that Tesla's been laying off some battery production workers. These would be specifically cell assembly lines, so it's not necessarily like Tesla's battery production as we think of it nowadays with 4680s, but some workers apparently in the cell assembly lines. They say, Bloomberg says it's not clear how many battery workers may be let go or the specific reasons behind the layoff, but they go on to say that some automation equipment could help replace the human labor on the battery production lines. So could be a case of Tesla automating some jobs away, and it does sound like they'd probably be reassigning some of these workers and then laying off some, but again, not exactly sure how many. So this could be part of the upgrades that we see happening with Highland, or maybe unrelated and just an upgrade that Tesla is doing in general. But that kind of seems to be the case with this battery layoff report, which I've seen covered in a few different places. And then the other thing that's been going on in China, kind of a weird situation that I'm sure you guys have probably seen, but last week there was an agreement signed by I think 16 automakers in China to avoid quote unquote abnormal pricing, which probably was instigated by Tesla's price changes earlier this year. So Tesla actually even signed on to that, but it only lasted for 2 days. And now the automakers have removed this, or decided to no longer do this because the practice could be seen as anti-competitive, which I think was kind of everyone's sort of initial reaction. It seems a little bit like price fixing. I don't know if there was a structure that made them think that it wasn't that way originally, but it sounds like it's being scrapped because of those reasons. So I don't know, kind of a weird situation that was, I guess, pretty short-lived. All right, moving on from China, we do have a couple of updates on the Tesla bot here. We've talked before about Tesla's job openings, job positions that are available for the Tesla bot. It's interesting to follow, from time to time. And if we check on this, we can see that Tesla's, I think, hiring over 50 positions here for a variety of different engineering roles with the Tesla bot. And then one in particular kind of sticks out as a little bit more interesting than the rest. And this is the manufacturing engineering line lead for the Tesla bot, which is interesting from a production standpoint, but also because the location is different than most of these other listings. So this is in Sparks, Nevada, obviously where Giga Nevada would be, versus a lot of these other things happening in Palo Alto, which is where Tesla's doing more of their R&D type of stuff. So for this being in Nevada is, a little bit of an outlier, and kind of suggests that maybe Tesla has production plans there, obviously probably early stage plans, but some plans nonetheless to maybe do a pilot line or a full production line of the Tesla bot at Giga Nevada. So definitely an interesting one there. And we'll have to continue to keep an eye on these listings to see if there are any other sort of listings that suggest something similar. All right, as for Giga Texas, we've got an update here again. Bear with me catching up a bit, but from Joe Tegmeyer, this was pretty early on. This was probably back in maybe even June at this point. So we'll go through it quick because most people probably know this, but sounds like Joe was saying that there was some downtime expected in the beginning of July for approximately 5 days for some upgrades and things like that, and also some reassignment. So personnel who were formerly on the swing shift, which is being reduced for just a day and a night shift, are being redirected to Cybertruck production lines to finalize testing, calibration, and get the lines into production status. This will likely take place throughout July and into early August. So obviously an exciting update there on the Cybertruck, and hopefully that suggests that maybe things will be on track for that Q3 delivery event that Elon referenced on the last earnings call, which hopefully we'll get an update on that in about a week. And speaking of the Cybertruck, we got a few new videos of the Cybertruck doing some testing in New Zealand, courtesy of Cybertruck NZ on Twitter. You can see those there, and some of them driving around having some, fun and also testing on this patch of ice here, which kind of cool to see. But yeah, if you want to check out those full videos, you can go to that page. Quick update here on Tesla's international expansions. We know that Elon had said that they're going to continue expanding into more countries. It looks like Malaysia may be next, so I'm not sure if this is official Tesla account. Obviously, you got to kind of be careful of that stuff from time to time. But there have been other reports that Tesla is going to be launching officially in Malaysia on July 20th. And then more recent news, since that was a little bit old, it sounds like Elon has requested specifically to meet with the Malaysian Prime Minister to discuss the possibility of him increasing his investments, him being Elon in this case, in Malaysia. So potentially not only opening for business, but maybe looking to make a more significant investment. Elon continuing his world leader meetings there in Malaysia. So, well, it'll be interesting to follow that and see if, I doubt there'd be a gigafactory there, but potentially some supply chain investments that Tesla could have in mind. Quick one here. So Tesla has changed the base color. So, if we go back a few years, black paint was the base color, the free paint option that was updated to white maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And now it has been updated again, at least here in the United States. I'm not sure internationally, but updated to Midnight Silver Metallic being that base color. White is now a $1,000 option. So I think good to see a little bit of diversity that this will probably lead to, with more people picking Midnight Silver Metallic versus the white. White Teslas are obviously, as many of you know, becoming quite common. So probably good to switch that up from time to time. Quick update on FSD Beta. So Tesla Scope here saying that version 11.4.5 is now rolling out to employees and special groups, but the release notes are the same as 4.4. And although no release notes, no updates to release notes sometimes makes it seem like it's not going to be a very significant change, sometimes we've actually found those to make quite a bit of difference in terms of just the smoothness or the functionality of FSD Beta. So be interesting to see some early reports on people's experience with 4.5. And again, we continue to see pretty frequent updates on FSD Beta, which is nice. Now, also related, we've got an update from Green the Only, who has gained access, I think from an anonymous donor, it says, to just a visual here of the hardware for computer. So he goes through some of the differences. We're not going to spend a ton of time on that. It's very technical, but you can go to his Twitter and kind of see some of those things. He did note that one thing we've been talking about with the potential for expansion for additional cameras, which we've seen with the Cybertruck, where there's the bumper camera. It does sound like there are ports here for that as expected, but they are depopulated, which Green says that we have seen before from Tesla. And usually, if they didn't have plans to use that, they wouldn't include it and depopulate it. They would just omit it. So the fact that it's depopulated might mean that eventually it will be populated. Maybe that ends up only being for certain vehicles like the Cybertruck, but could mean that things change eventually for a vehicle like the Model Y as well. And then just a few quick things here on charging, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Many of you have, caught up on this stuff, but Electrify America is going to add NACS, which obviously a nice step there, and kind of following that trend. Volkswagen saying that they're evaluating the implementation of NACS. No final word on that yet, but obviously they've got a key stake in Electrify America. And then Polestar, they're adapting it. Same situation where 2024 adapter and then integrating it in 2025. And then Mercedes-Benz actually very notably announcing that they'll be adding NACS, and again, same situation, introducing it in 2025, access in 2024. So the waterfall kind of continues here of brands adopting this, and I think at this point it's going to be very, very difficult for any brands to avoid this with how many brands have now adopted it. So glad to see that continue over the last week or so. And then finally here, just a quick update on Rivian. They announced their Q2 production and delivery figures and really did quite well. They grew deliveries by 49% from Q1. They grew production by 59%. I might have those flipped. Yeah, probably the lower, but anyway, production and deliveries grew by 40 to 50 to 60%, pardon me, quarter over quarter, which is well ahead of expectations. I think the stock has done pretty well for the last few days as a result of this, but it sounds like they are on track, or they believe they're on track for their guidance for 50,000 vehicles this year. And I don't think I said the figure yet, but 14,000 vehicles produced nearly, and about 12,600 vehicles delivered. So obviously Rivian will need to continue to work on cost controls, but good to see some progress there for them. All right, I think that'll wrap it up for today. Hopefully not too lengthy there, but again, I just want to say a quick thank you for your patience. Obviously not a great time for having a vacation scheduled after I had to, work on a lot of things the week prior, but hopefully really getting back now into the normal schedule. It's still going to be a little bit spotty here, but I think, shooting for 5 episodes this week back on the normal cadence, and I'll do my best on that. So again, just appreciate the patience. And as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow for I guess today, my time zone, for the July 11th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.